Hey everyone, it's Olivia. Today I am going to be doing my very first book review. If you hear rattling in the background, it's because our air conditioning unit rotates like every 16 minutes and it's just rattling in the background. It'll go off eventually. I don't know when it's going to go off, but it'll go off eventually. Also, if my face looks very bright, it's because I'm trying a new lighting thing. And yeah, it's very bright. It's gonna make my face look very bright, but it's the effect I was going for. It's just very bright. So the book I am reviewing today is, make sure I get away from the light because this book it's called The Siren. I love this book. This is my favorite romance novel book that I have ever read. This was the first romance novel book that I read, like romantic fantasy book that I've ever read. This was the first one that I read, and I loved it. I just fell in love with this book, and it was just amazing. Yeah, I love this book so much. And because I like the book so much, I looked up the author and saw that she had another book series that a lot of people like called The Selection, and I decided to put that on my wish list. And I hope to read The Selection very soon because I enjoy reading this book by her and by Kiera Cass, and I hope that I enjoy reading The Selection, which is also by Kiera Cass. So yeah. But don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. If you want, you do not have to. We're going to go over the pros, the cons, and the plot of the story, and my overall review for this book. So let us begin. If I get the names wrong, that's totally normal. I would do the same thing with Keeper of the Lost Cities. Okay, so I believe this is pronounced, the main character is pronounced Kaylin, or Kylan. I think it's pronounced Kaylin. Kaylin is a siren bound to serve the ocean by using her voice to lure humans to their death at sea. A single word from Kaylin can kill, but she can't resist spending her days on land, wishing she could speak and live freely among ordinary people. If you don't know something about me, if you got, I haven't, why am I scampering right there? I haven't been on YouTube for very long. It's been about like a month and a half, and I did depart for 2 weeks for college and vacation. So if you don't know much about me, I love oceanic books, mermaids, sirens. I love the lore. I love everything about it. That was like literally my childhood. I would pretend, to this day, I probably still pretend to be a mermaid. And I tend to write a lot of books about mermaids and sirens because I just find the lore of those things so creative. It's just amazing. And that's one of the main reasons why I love this book, because it really goes deep into like the siren lore. And it definitely pulls from what I did with my siren books that I started writing. And yeah. So it definitely grabbed my attention when it had sirens put in it. The next character in this book, who's the main character, is, I think you pronounce this like
Akinley.
Akinley is human, a kind, handsome boy who's everything Kylie ever dreamed of. And though she can't talk to him, they begin to form a connection Kylie doesn't want to ignore. Falling in love with a human breaks the ocean's rule. But for the first time in a lifetime of following the rules, Kylie is determined to follow her heart. So you get the basic gist. She meets a human boy, Kylie meets a human boy, and they start to form an unbreakable love bond. It really is an unbreakable love bond. Like, seriously, it's very unbreakable. So let's start with the pros. My favorite character actually isn't the main character. I do like Kylie. I think she was a great character. I think she had a lot of good character development, especially I got to see her connection to the ocean and how it was a lot more developed than the other sirens. But I feel like the person who I connected with the most and liked the most was actually Kylie's big sister. She's not her actual sister, but she's like her ocean sister, and she's been a siren for a longer time than her was. I think the name is pronounced Aisling, and I really like Aisling because she's a lot older than the other sirens. We get to get a little bit of her backstory, and I love her backstory. Her backstory reminds me of my mom a lot, and how she was a very loving mother, and how she didn't want to forget her life as a mother, and so she hid that part of her so deep when the ocean came to get her, and she was able to keep that memory. Most of the sirens don't remember their lives in their previous lives. Like, they kind of do, but it's very fragmented. Aisling's like one of the only people who I think actually remembers her older lives. And I just love her. I feel like I connect with her more, and I feel like when I write a mother, I intend to write a mother who is loving, and I feel like Aisling was definitely pictured as a loving mother, sister-like figure, and I think she was done really well, and I definitely think that's why she's my favorite character, because of how she was depicted. I relate to her in the sense that I know people like her, and I see a lot of times that person depicted through a lot of stories. But I do like the main character. She is probably my second favorite character. Moving forward, I love the world building. The world building of this book is just amazing. It's set in the real world, so it's set on Earth. It's not like in some fantasy other element, but the ocean is just so alive. If you've ever seen the movie Moana, everybody knows that the best character in Moana is the ocean. And I love Moana because of how it depicts the ocean. When I read this book, the ocean to me it felt so alive. Every time I heard the ocean speak every time I read the ocean speak in this book, it just felt so alive to me, and I just love that, because I really do think that the ocean, if you depict the ocean in a book where it has like a sense of connection to like sea creatures, it should be alive. I do feel like the ocean should seem like it's alive, like it actually has a sense of being. It's chaotic, it can be a mother figure, it can be a lot of things, but I do think that the ocean should feel alive when you write a sea creature book, because then I feel like it's also part of the story. And you do want the ocean to be part of a sea creature book story. You want the ocean to be part of it because it contributes to the other sea creatures, mystical creatures, other characters in the story. The ocean contributes when you make it more alive. And I definitely got that when I was reading this book. And because I liked it so much, I would read ahead. I don't know why, but if I find something that I really like in a story, I tend to just like read ahead. And that's what I did. I just read ahead. And I did that with a lot of the love connection between the main characters. I did read ahead to see if they found love. But I mean, like, it's totally normal to read ahead in a story and not read ahead at the same time. It's totally normal to do that, and I did that. I like the power concept of them, how they can't speak, and if they do speak, they kill. It's a little different from what I expected from sirens. And also the song, if I can find it, but the song in here reminds me of if you guys have ever seen Tangled the series, the song in here is this a song? No, this is not a song. Yeah, I'll find it eventually. The song in here that they use to pull humans underneath their hypnosis control reminds me a lot of the Moonstone incantation from Tangled, which is like I think it goes somewhere along the lines of wither and decay, and this destiny, break these earthly chains and set the spirit free. That kind of reminds me of what the song is in here. I don't know where it is in this book. I will say it has been a while since I've read this book, but oddly enough, I remember everything that happened in it. Like every major event. I remember them moving. I remember them getting another sister named Padme. And I like Padme. I thought she was the fact that she came from an abusive kind of family and the fact that she wanted to escape from that, I absolutely love that. Because it makes every single sister comes from a different background. And I love how every single Siren sister came from a different background. It helped with the world developing, and it helped with the character developing as well, because you got to see different types of characters from different types of backgrounds. You need different characters in different backgrounds to all work together. You need that in every kind of story. Another thing that I really like, that I think a lot of people are going to get confused by if I start doing it, because I am going to do this down the road, is the fact that the two main love connections, Keely and Kylene, I think is how you say their names, those two love connections, they were fated to be together. Like, they were fated to fall in love. Their souls were like intertwined, or they had some kind of deep love connection. And literally when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, I wrote two characters just like that. So I have these two characters. If you've read my Fate the Wings saga books, you'll know these two characters. I have two characters named Olivia and Joshua, and in my Fate the Wings saga book I introduced them, but they have a backstory that I'm going to write for them in another book series. Olivia and Joshua's souls are intertwined. They've been intertwined from birth, and they're not necessarily fated to fall in love, although I do plan on having them fall in love, but they're not necessarily fated to fall in love. It's just like they have a deep bond connection. And when I was reading this book, that's basically what these two love interests have. They have a deep connection, a deep romantic love connection that cannot be broken, and if they are separated, it seems like they die. Or so I think, so when Kylene used her voice to spoke for the first time, and it affected the love interest, her I kindly, I'm trying not to say his name, I can't say his name, when it affected him, when she was able to save him, apparently her voice had long-lasting effects on him, that it was slowly inching him closer to death, and that affected her as well. Like, whatever happened to him would happen to her. That's why she ultimately had to leave the ocean, because otherwise she would have died. Even if the whole, like, Siren thing where she looks pretty, she was somehow, her powers and her age and everything was just failing. And I like that. I like how there are flaws to the Siren system in the book. There needs to be flaws, and I liked how they were depicted. I liked how this book went dark. Like, this book could go dark. We got to see them kill people with their voices. We got to see that happen. And for me, I've never read a scene like that where it does that, where they're just killing people by singing. I've never read a book that does that. And I like how it did that. It showed an example of how the sirens sing and it lures them into hypnosis. I have a lot of cons about this book. Not cons. Pros. I have a lot of pros about this book. But moving on to the cons. I actually don't have many cons with this book. I think my only con with this book is Aikili, the boy character that she falls in love with. I wish he had a little bit more development. He just seemed like the most average, normal human guy out there. Like, he just felt like the most average, normal human guy out there who was super pretty and handsome. I shouldn't say pretty, I should say handsome. But he just felt like the most average, handsome guy out there that any girl would possibly fall in love with. And he just felt like someone who, yeah, he was like it was very weird. He reacted like a normal person would react when Kylene had to leave for a few months and had to come back, and they were never in a real relationship. And so he acted perfectly normal when she left or when she ran away. He acted like how any guy would respond to a girl running away. He responded with, "Why'd you leave? Where'd you go? What happened to you?" He was just an average, normal, handsome guy. And as much as I love their story and their bond and their connection, and as much as I love that and how they grew and romantic, I didn't like the boy character and how he developed. He was very average, and I don't want average. I want complex boy characters. If you get what I'm saying. But that's the only bad thing I have with the characters. There were some friends of Kylene that I didn't like her main friend group, which I believe her main friend group is, oh yeah, Mika and Elizabeth. There were some times where I didn't like Mika and Elizabeth, what they did and how they acted. There were some times that I didn't like how they acted. But overall, they were okay characters. They were what you expected from sirens, and I liked how they were developed. I liked how they were good friends and good sisters to Kylene. My overall review for this book, I may not like the boy character and his character development, but I have to give this story a 10 out of 10 because this is my favorite romantic novel. There may be some things that I don't like, but I don't think it affects my ranking because all of that stuff that I don't like it just doesn't matter to me. Even if I don't like it, it kind of just fades away when you're reading the story. You can notice that there are flaws to every book, but when a story is so good, you kind of just forget that there are flaws, and you just keep reading, and you don't care that there are flaws, and you are compelled by the story And that's how I felt. I love this book. It's my favorite romance novel. It's probably the first romantic novel that I've ever read. Yeah, I love the Siren. That's the book I read that I love. So yeah, don't forget to join me tonight for my live stream, which I believe is going to be at 8 o'clock. I'll post a reminder for it. But that is all I have for you guys today. Bye!